Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Iran has denied a claim by Vice President JD Vance that it will allow nuclear inspectors back into the country after the first round of talks between Washington and Tehran to reach a final deal to end the war. Following negotiations in Switzerland, JD Vance said the discussions with the International Atomic Energy Agency could be happening as soon as today. But Iran's foreign ministry told state media that Tehran had made no commitments on nuclear inspections. Iran and the US continued to share conflicting remarks on the nuclear issue on Tuesday. At least 312 schools across England and Wales have closed fully or partially due to soaring temperatures. A rare red warning for extreme heat comes into force for parts of England and Wales later, as the UK is bracing for its hottest June day on record, with temperatures forecast to rise above 35 degrees Celsius. Overnight, storms in southeast England caused flooding and travel disruption, with at least 2 house fires blamed on the weather. There were 29,000 flashes of lightning last night and early this morning across England. Meanwhile, 40 people have drowned in France since the heatwave began on Thursday. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, has blamed the record temperatures on climate change and has called for a fast, fair transition to clean energy during an address at London Climate Action Week.
Around the world, climate disasters are becoming more frequent, more destructive and more costly. And the World Meteorological Organization has warned we ain't seen nothing yet. El Niño is not just knocking on the door, it risks blowing the house down.
A UN Commission of Inquiry says Israel has deliberately targeted Palestinian children, resulting in genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes in the Gaza Strip, as well as war crimes in the occupied West Bank. A new report alleges that Israeli authorities and security forces have deliberately carried out acts inflicting death and severe bodily and mental harm on hundreds of thousands of Palestinian children. Israel's foreign ministry said it utterly rejects the Commission's report, calling it a libelous sham and a propaganda piece as outrageous as its previous ones.
In Palestine, Gaza, we have seen over 20,000 children killed directly as a result of the violence. That does not include children who have not been identified, those who are buried under the rubble. It's only identified bodies of children, and it's around 22,000 now that have been identified and counted.
More than a year after the death of Zambia's former president, Edgar Lungu, his family have won their appeal to have his body buried in South Africa, where he died, overturning a High Court ruling that allowed the Zambian government to repatriate the corpse. It is not clear whether the ruling at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein finally puts to rest the legal battle over what should happen to his remains, following a long-standing feud between Lungu and his successor. All eyes will be on the Zambian government's next move as its lawyers await instruction. It has long maintained that, as former head of state, Lungu should be honoured in the country.
Action.
Kenya's Health Minister Aden Duale has halted the construction of a controversial US-funded Ebola quarantine facility in the country, a day after he was found in contempt of court for ignoring a judge's ruling. Appearing in court on Tuesday, Duale apologised and said he had directed the immediate and complete cessation of building work at a military base in the town of Nanyuki. The quarantine facility, which caused anger on the streets of the town, was intended for US citizens who were suspected to have contracted Ebola in the current outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Authorities in South Sudan have said the long-delayed first-ever vote in the country will take place in December. The leaders of the world's youngest country have not yet been tested at the ballot box since independence in 2011, and President Salva Kiir has been in office for 15 years. According to the original plan, the general election was supposed to have happened in 2015, but a civil war meant that had to be postponed. And a kangaroo has led wildlife officers on a merry hop around Boucherville near Montreal after bounding out of a stable and going on the run for several days. Nicknamed Joey by his rescuers, the marsupial was finally sedated and bundled into an ambulance from Granbury Zoo, which will be his new permanent home. Officials couldn't move in sooner as they needed the right permits before approaching an escaped kangaroo in suburban Quebec. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.